After an avalanche took place in Nepal in 2014, Nadav ben Yehuda was called by the Israeli embassy to lead a rescue mission effort to rescue hikers. This was quite an accomplishment, as 2 years earlier, he had simply been a regular hiker attempting to reach the top of the world. Yet what happened in 2012 changed his life and the life of another person in an incredible way. Nadav was just 1,000 feet from standing on the top of the world, at the top of Mount Everest, when the 24-year-old Israeli law student noticed an unconscious and injured 64-year-old Turkish man named Aydin Ermak. Aydin was lying in the snow with no gloves, no oxygen, and no shelter. And at this great height and thin air, death was imminent. Though other climbers streamed by Aydin on their bid to stand at the peak, without hesitation, Nadav relinquished his opportunity to stand on the summit as he risked his life to rescue Aydin's. 9 hours later, both men were suffering severe physical injuries and frostbite, yet both of them survived, which is remarkable, as not many persons who reach that height in Aydin's condition survive. What also makes this Everest climb story remarkable is that Turkey and Israel have always long been nations with relation issues. So Nadav's act not only saved a life, but also bridged a distance between these two countries, which is why 2 years later, when he was requested to rescue hikers in Nepal, there was this bit of returning to a Mount Everest event. Because when he was asked why he relinquishes his dreams of conquest and stops to help people in need, his answer, because we share a meal together. Which is where our account in Esther begins, a shared meal between Esther, Haman, and King Ahasuerus. And similar to Negev, Esther had begun as a simple peasant woman living in the king's realm. But through incredible circumstances, she finds herself in a situation which allowed her the opportunity to make a special request from the king. Prior to gaining her special status, Esther lived in Susa, a province outside the capital city, which was ruled by the Persian king. The Hebrews referred to him as King Ahasuerus. We in the English-speaking world refer to him as King Xerxes. He believed that he ruled with absolute power and authority. So one day he decided to throw a party, but his wife, Vashti, refused to attend. It's not clear what caused her to refuse, but she humiliated the king. Infuriated, the king decided it was time for a new queen, someone who would obey his commands. And it won't hurt, he thought, if she looked great on TV and YouTube. He called his advisors, and after kicking around some ideas, he settled on a sort of Persian version of The Bachelor. The stage was set, and the country was ecstatic as ladies from all over the kingdom had their shot at becoming the next queen. The only one, it seems, that wasn't hyped about the competition was Esther. However, her older cousin Mordecai convinced her to join the competition, and she won. She was going to become the next Persian queen. However, she held a secret. She never informed the judges of the competition, nor the king, that she was Jewish. Perhaps she thought the issue wasn't such a big deal. However, it would soon become a big deal, as Haman, for reasons we're not told, hated Mordecai and believed that the kingdom should be Jewish-free. Taking advantage of the king's misguided trust, Haman convinced King Xerxes to pass an edict that would allow for this mass genocide. Esther experienced an internal battle. Reveal who she was and possibly be killed herself, or remain silent about her identity and remain as the queen of Persia, where she could possibly create change for some later generation. However, what later generation? Her family would be dead and everyone she knew would be gone. Realizing she had to stop this injustice, she had an epiphany that this may have been why God selected her for such a time as this. Following Vashti's lead, Esther determined that she would no longer tolerate injustice for an oppressed people. As Vashti nearly overturned the world with a single no, Esther completes what she started. Esther rose up and challenged the king's edict with her can-do attitude. Esther was truly an incredible woman for her time frame, as she rose up and spoke to one of the most powerful authorities in the world. She boldly stood before the king and spoke truth to power and invited the king to break bread with her so she could reveal her enemy's plans. Her display of courage has throughout history, even US history, has inspired countless generations, especially for those seeking freedom from oppression. One such example is the account of Sojourner Truth. Sojourner was born into slavery in New York. After escaping with her infant daughter to find freedom in 1826, she went to court to recover her son in 1828, becoming the first Black woman to win this type of case in our court system. As a women's rights convention in New York City in 1853, Sojourner was one of the speakers, and though she was illiterate, she knew a lot of Bible studies. So she told the attendees, Queen Esther went forth, for she was oppressed and felt there was a great wrong. She declared, I will die or bring my complaint before the king. Should the king of the United States be greater or more crueler or more harder? Sojourner and Esther and Nedev are models of rising to the occasion and living into their biblical teachings and life of faith. Even when everyone else is ignoring the issue or turning a blind eye toward the oppressed or downtrodden, they exemplified the faith of Jeremiah as they came close to sacrificing their lives for the benefit of someone else. Like Esther, Nedev, or Sojourner, we found a way to be victorious, to help others, to overcome injustices, and we recognize our success of navigating hurdles in life is from our reliance on God, who is our source of our strength and our inspiration. For example, when COVID prevented us from meeting indoors, we were equipped by God with many skill sets so we could carry on. As many of you who froze in your cars in the winter and baked under the hot summer heat, or sat under the blazing sun to attend our safe distancing outdoor service, we have witnessed through our resilience and our creativity. We have tapped into our skills and hidden talents to ensure persons still experience the living God. And we have been united. All of this was made possible in such a time as this because God helped us adapt our worship services and how we do church to keep everyone safe and healthy. We continue to adapt, just as persons who worked in an office building prior to COVID adapted to Zoom meetings and working from home. We continue to adapt as school systems and parents have helped children navigate a digital educational world to remain connected with friends and to obtain an education. Whether we are oppressed or suffering the injustice of the pandemic or suffering an injustice in the world, we overcome because God is a hands-on God who remains with us and grants us specific skills needed as we find ourselves in specific places for a specific purpose. Through us, God brings relief to the world and wonderful healing as God helps us overcome our adversaries, even viruses and floods that occur in Grosse Pointe. We might call this a great reversal as God brings change to the world, or as a commentator, Sidney White Crawford labeled this, the great reversal, also known as the ironic reversal, where expected outcomes are reversed and where the state of things experience a sudden change. Some examples from Esther. Vashti the queen becomes Vashti the banished. Esther, the humble orphan, becomes a powerful queen. The Jews in Persia who are sanctioned to die become the victors, and their mourning turns to rejoicing. This ironic reversal also appears in the Gospels as Jesus describes the Good Samaritan. In the parable, the priest and the Levite who had the means to help a fellow citizen heal from their wounds turn their back on the man, while a despised Samaritan comes to his aid. In the rich man and Lazarus, the beggar story, Lazarus is the one taken into paradise. And there are additional examples, and all of them describe God's ability to reverse the world's misfortunes and create holy wholeness and deliver healing. There are times God's hands-on approach is visible, as when Jesus stepped into the Jordan and was baptized, and the Holy Spirit was made visible and soared down like a dove. Other times, like in the story of Esther on Mount Everest, it seems God is invisible to our human view. Yet, when we reflect back on these events, we realize God was present the whole time. God was working through us and through our experiences so we could be part of God's ironic reversal process. It's difficult to see the future. Yet I believe this pandemic and this sewerage event, which have had an impact on us, has also equipped us for something. Perhaps it's equipped us for some upcoming pastoral need, or has shaped us to remember that we must remain flexible and open to daily events. Perhaps even teaching us how to remain flexible as we utilize our church life and our church building for upcoming events or ministerial programs or whatever God knows is yet around the corner. Something that will require us to adapt and remain flexible as we live together in harmony with each other and our community. Whatever it is that God is preparing us for, may we allow God's presence to reside within us and around us as we recognize that God chose us and will place us in the right place for the right time. When we discover what God has been preparing us and equipping us for, remember, it's all right. Don't panic. Take care of yourself and take care of others. For God remains with us, and it was God who sent us for such a time as this.